in Pharmaceuticals in association with Higher Secondary Principals Forum.
Hi everyone, a hearty welcome to all my 12th standard students and also the viewers of this Sociology virtual lecture. Once again, this is Teacher Bambina Andrade from Jawaharlal Nehru Higher Secondary School, Fatorda, Margam. Well students, last time I had done with you all the lesson Market as a Social Institution. I hope all of you all have understood this lesson. So today we are going to learn about another very important chapter which carries 11 marks. So before I start the chapter, I would like to show you a slide. Now if you look at this slide students, what do you find? You will find different types of people here, some two girls, poor girls, some people sitting in restaurants, a child here outside the restaurant, some children begging here. Then there are some school children enjoying school life. In contrast to that, we have a child who is burdened with work. Then down there we have somebody doing manual work. Then we have somebody in the office, somebody without job. Then there are rich families. There's a poor mother with a child. So what does all this tell us? What does this slide speak? This shows that there are a lot of inequalities in our society. So students, today we shall learn about the chapter patterns of social inequality and exclusion. Now, for most of us who are born in India, social inequality and exclusion are a part of life. We see beggars in the streets, on railway platforms and so on. We see young children laboring as domestic workers, construction helpers, working in street side dabas, tea stalls and many other places. Then we hear of inequalities against women, against caste like the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribes, the untouchables and so on. Students, let me tell you, we feel that these inequalities are inevitable. They are almost natural. They have to be there. And that is the reason why students, these inequalities have been continuing in our society. So we shall see now the first topic of this chapter, that is what is social about social inequality and exclusion. The topic itself is a big question mark. What is social about this inequality and exclusion? Now there are three reasons why these inequalities or these exclusion are called as social. First of all, they are not about individuals but about groups. An entire group is taken into consideration. Individual abilities are not considered at all, and that is the reason why it is called social. Secondly, they are social in the sense that they are not economic. Although there is a close link, a strong link between economic and social inequalities. Thirdly, they are called social because they are systematic and structured. There's a definite pattern to these social inequalities. Different patterns, they are fixed. They are made by us, we people in the societies. So, first we will take social inequality from here. To understand social inequality, students, we have to first understand the different forms of resources. We have three forms of resources. We have economic capital, we have social capital and cultural capital. Now, what is economic capital? Capital in the form of material assets and income is called as economic capital. Our property, our money, the income what we have. Some may have more, some may have less, some may not have at all. So this is the economic capital. Now what is social capital? Social capital is the capital in the form of networks, contacts, associations. Again, there may be some people who have got high networks, many contacts, whereas on the other hand, there may be people without any context or very less context. Then we have the cultural capital. Capital in the form of educational qualification and status. Again here we have people with high status, high educational qualification, and then on the other side we have people with less qualification or no qualification at all. So these are basically the forms of resources. Now these forms of resources, students, are not equally distributed among all the people in our society, and that is the reason why there are inequalities. So what is basically inequalities? Patterns of unequal access to social resources is commonly called as social inequalities. Everybody is not getting an equal opportunity to access to these things, and that is the reason why, students, there are inequalities in our society. Now let me tell you, some of these inequalities are inborn, innate, but there are many differences which are created by us in the society, the same society in which we live. So to understand this social inequality, first of all, we have to understand something called as social stratification. Now if you look at the pyramid, students, there are some layers here. We have the Brahmins on top, followed by the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, and the Shudras. They are structured, they are like layers. Okay? So the system by which categories of people in a society are ranked in a hierarchy is termed as social stratification. Now, it is the structured inequalities between groups in a society. The word stratification, students, come from the word strata, which means layers. We have learnt about the geographical layering of rocks, the sedimentary rocks. They are made up of layers. Similarly, our society is divided or made into layers. Now here the more favored are at the top and at the hierarchy, and the less privileged near the bottom. If you see the pyramid again, we have the Brahmins on top. So they are the most superior people, and the Shudras right there at the bottom of that caste hierarchy. Now Dalits do not figure in the caste hierarchy and are therefore considered as subhuman and polluted. If you look at the pyramid again very carefully, you will find that the Dalits are not a part of the main pyramid. They are below the main pyramid. If you see that, it's a separate this here. So they are not a part of that caste hierarchy, and that is the reason why they are considered as subhuman. Now, to understand social stratification, students, we have to understand the key principle that will help us to understand social stratification. So the first principle of social stratification is, social stratification is a characteristic of society and not simply a function of individual differences. It is a society-wide system that unequally distributes social resources among categories of people, regardless of people's innate individual differences. People's innate individual differences are not taken into consideration. It is the characteristic of the entire society. So that's the first principle, students, of social stratification. Second principle is, social stratification persists over generation. It goes on from one generation to the other. It is closely linked to the family and to the inheritance of social resources. A person's social position is ascribed, means it is given to us by birth. The birth dictates the occupation of a person, occupation of a particular family. For example, the Dalits are likely to be confined to traditional occupations such as agricultural laborers, scavenging, or leather works. As we know, they are all given the low grade jobs, like the agricultural laborers scavenging, that is they have to carry or pick up the dead bodies or clean gutters, and all these type of jobs are meant for the Dalits. Third principle of stratification is social stratification is supported by patterns of beliefs or ideology. No system of social stratification is likely to persist over generation unless it is widely viewed as being either fair or inevitable. Everyone feels that there is nothing wrong in these inequalities, in this stratification. Everybody views it as inevitable, as fair, and that is the reason why students, it's going on from one generation to another generation. There is no full stop, there is no end to these atrocities or to these inequalities that people face. Now, the caste system is justified in terms of the opposition of purity and pollution, with the Brahmins designated as the most superior right on top of the pyramid and the Dalits as the most inferior. I said the Dalits are not a part of the caste hierarchy, they are much below that hierarchy, and that is the reason why they are considered as inferior. Next type of social inequality is prejudices. Now, what is a prejudice? Prejudice refers to the preconceived opinions or attitudes held by members of one group towards another. Preconceived opinions, attitudes. We have some attitudes which we conceive in our mind beforehand, even without knowing the person. So these preconceived opinions are called as prejudices. Now, the word prejudice literally means prejudgment. We judge a person beforehand. So it's basically the prejudgment which we have. Now, prejudice may be either positive or negative. Usually we have negative prejudices. Now, prejudices, students, are often grounded in stereotypes. They are fixed and inflexible characterization of a group of people. We can be prejudiced about many things, about people's religion, about color, their skin, and so many things. Now, this prejudice are so strong among us or within us that sometimes we don't even want to have friendship with these type of people. Like for example, we say that colored-eyed people are not to be trusted. So suppose in our classrooms or in our neighborhood, if we have somebody with colored eyes, we try to avoid that person just because it's in our mind that these people are not to be trusted. Now, I would like to show you some examples of prejudices among rural people as well as urban people. We say that more than 50% of Indians live in villages. Yes, maybe, but not always. We cannot say more than 50% live in villages, but it's there in our mind. It's a prejudice. Next we say villagers do not care about their health. They are full of superstitions. Do you think so, students, that all villagers do not care for their health or they are superstitious? No, I don't think it is like that. Next we have people in villages are backward and do not like to use modern agricultural technology. To some extent I would say yes, but not always. All people are not the same. Last we have villagers are forced to migrate to cities in search of job. Nobody has forced anyone. It is one's own wish to move to a village or a city or anywhere. But we have in mind, it's a prejudice that people want or are forced to migrate to cities in search of jobs. Now we shall see some prejudices about urban people. Life in the city is easy. People here are spoilt and lazy. Do you think so, students, that all people are lazy, all people are spoilt, or life is very easy? I don't think so. Life is so easy in the cities. But we have in mind, we judge these city people as spoilt, as lazy, and so on. Next we say in cities, families spend very little time with each other. May or may not be true. Thirdly, People in cities only care about money, not about people. Yes, sometimes it happens, but just because few people are like that, we cannot apply it to everyone belonging to the cities or living in the cities. Then we say, city people cannot be trusted. They are cunning and corrupt. All city people are not cunning. All city people are not corrupt. So we cannot again apply this to the entire population living in the cities. Next, students, we have stereotypes. Now, what are stereotypes? Again, stereotypes are fixed and inflexible characterization or images of a group of people. Stereotypes are often applied to ethnic and racial groups and to women. We apply them especially to this ethnic or the racial groups or to women, that they are this type, they are that type. So this is the fixed characterization which we have about particular group of people. Now stereotypes fix the whole group into a single homogeneous category. It may be few people like that, but we categorize the entire group as one, as homogeneous. They refuse to recognize each person as a unique individual. They prevent us from doing certain things that we might otherwise be good at. Because of the stereotypes which are fixed in our minds, it stops us from doing some things which we are good at. Like for example, I will give you, some of the high secondaries have CRM, that is catering and restaurant management. Usually it is taken up by boys, but if a girl wants to take, the mother or the parents will say that is not for you, that is meant for boys. Or if somebody wants to take up, a boy wants to take up tailoring, the parents or the neighbors will say no, that's not for you, that is for the girls. So these are stereotypes, like certain people should do certain type of jobs, or they are meant only for certain people, either a male or a female. So they are fixed in our mind. Some examples of stereotypes I would like to display here, students. You are a boy, boys don't cry. So usually when boys cry, suppose if a boy child falls and he starts crying, parents usually try to tell him, you must not cry. Only girls cry, you are a boy, you are a strong person. So even if the boy feels like crying because the others will laugh or because the parents will laugh, they suppress themselves. They do not cry. Secondly, they are soft-spoken and gentle. This is mostly applied to girls. Girls are supposed to be soft-spoken, supposed to be gentle. That job is not for you, you are a girl. That's what we mostly say. Like for example, a girl wants to become a pilot. The parents usually say, no, that's not your job. It's only meant for boys. So these are the stereotypes, students, which we have. Then is she okay in her mind? A girl especially, keeps on laughing all the time. So we think or we feel that that girl is not proper in her mind. He's a dumb child. He cannot be an engineer. So somebody who's not very good in studies, we say, how can he be an engineer? So that is the reason why the person, the boy or whoever, they stop. They do not go ahead in pursuing their career. We shall go on to the next topic, students. Now if you look at the slide, we find like up there we have some children sitting on the benches, some two children sitting down. Then down we have somebody doing manual job, a lady working in office, somebody without a job. In the third picture we see that the boy and the girl is fingering that a Negro. So what are all these? These are all differences. These are all discriminations which we do. Some maybe people belonging to a lower caste are not allowed to sit on the benches. There is racial discrimination there. Here there is job discrimination. So we are going to move on to our next topic, that is discrimination. Now what is discrimination? Discrimination refers to the actual behavior towards another group or individual. The actual behavior, the how we behave with the others, how we discriminate the others. Discrimination can be seen in practices that disqualify members of one group from opportunities open to the others. For example, A person is refused a job because of their gender or religion or even caste. When it comes to gender, there may be some convent institutions who employ only females or girls. So if a boy goes for the interview, he is not taken just because he is a boy or he is a man. So there is gender discrimination. There are discrimination as far as religion is concerned, as far as caste is concerned, and so many other things. Now discrimination is very hard to prove. We cannot prove exactly that there is discrimination done because it may not be open or explicitly stated. The person, the interviewer or the management may not tell you directly that you are not taken for the job because you are a boy or because you belong to a Hindu religion or a Muslim religion or maybe a Christian or because you belong to another caste. Nobody will say it openly. That is why it is very hard to prove that there is discrimination going on in our society. Now the second part of the main topic, that is social exclusion. So what is social exclusion? The ways in which individuals may become cut off from full involvement in the wider society is called as social exclusion. Full involvement. We are not involved in the wider society. We are not allowed to take part in certain things. We are not allowed to enter certain places. So this is called as social exclusion. Now, social exclusion focuses its attention on a broad range of factors that prevent individuals or groups from having opportunities open to the majority of the population. The opportunities which are open, which are available for the majority of the population, those opportunities are not given to certain people. They are excluded, they are kept aside from having opportunities which are there for everybody. Social exclusion is not accidental, but it is systematic. It just does not happen. It is systematically done in our society. It is the result of structural features of our society. Social exclusion is involuntary. It's not voluntary, but it is involuntary. It is practiced regardless of the wishes of those who are excluded. Like for example, do we find rich people sleeping on pavements or under the bridges and all those things? No. So that means, are they excluded from using the pavements? No. So it is involuntary. Social exclusion is involuntary. The prolonged experience of discriminatory or insulting behavior often produces a reaction on the part of the excluded, who then stop trying for inclusion. They have been excluded, they are not allowed, they are discriminated every now and then. These people try to get themselves included in those things, in those places, but every time they are kept aside. So they keep trying, and after a certain period of time, students, they are fed up of this and they stop trying for inclusion. They don't want to be a part of that particular group or that society anymore. For example, the Dalits, they built their own temples. And some of them even converted themselves to other religion. We have the best example of Dr. Ambedkar, who converted himself to Buddhism because of the atrocities which were there for the Dalits. He changed his religion to Buddhism. Next important topic, students, is untouchability. Now, what is untouchability? Untouchability is an extreme and particularly a vicious aspect of the caste system that prescribes social sanctions against members of caste located at the bottom of the purity pollution scale, the Brahmins on top, and right down we have the untouchables, the so-called Dalits. They are at the bottom of the purity pollution scale. We believe, the upper caste believe that they are polluted people and the Brahmins are the most pure people. You know, they have to undergo so many things, face so many things. If they are going in the public, sometimes in some places they are forced to tie a string with a broom behind. Do you know the reason, students, why this is done? This is basically done to wipe off the footprints, the impressions that are created with their foot, so that the people following them, if the Brahmins follow them, they should not get polluted. So these are some of the things which the upper caste people used to do to the lower caste people, especially the untouchables. They were considered so impure that their mere touch severely pollutes members of the other caste. It was so impure, even a shadow falling, mere touch also, the people used to feel that they will get polluted. Now Mahatma Gandhi popularized the term untouchables as Harijan, which means actually children of God. So he called them children of God. Another leader, that is Dr. Ambedkar, called them Dalits or the downtrodden. Now there are some dimensions of untouchability. This is a very important topic, students, from the examination point of view. We have 3 dimensions of untouchability, that is exclusion, humiliation, subordination and exploitation. So what is exclusion? The low caste, that is the touchables, now do not suffer the extreme form of exclusion reserved for the untouchables. The untouchables face a lot of problems. Okay, they are excluded. Dalits experience unique form of exclusion. For instance, they are prohibited from sharing drinking water sources or participating in collective religious worship. They are not allowed to enter the temples. They are not allowed to use the water from the common wells or the taps. So many atrocities against the people. So they are basically excluded. Secondly, it is humiliation, subordination. So the performance of publicly visible acts of self-humiliation and subordination is an important part of practice of untouchability. The common example of this include the imposition of gestures of deference. There are some gestures which they have to follow. Okay? Gestures of deference such as taking off the headgear, carrying the footwear in the hand, standing with bowed head, etc. They are compelled to play drums at religious events. If you know, here in Goa, the Mahars are asked to play the drums at religious functions for funerals and all. The Mahars, both in the Christian community as well as in the Hindu community, these are the people who play the drums for the religious events. Third is exploitation. Untouchability is mostly associated with economic exploitation. They are economically exploited. Most of the time they are forced to do work and they are either unpaid or they are underpaid. Not only that, students, sometimes even their properties are confiscated. Their properties are taken away from these people. So these are the 3 dimensions, students, of untouchability. Next we have state and non-state initiatives addressing caste and tribe discrimination. There are many initiatives taken by a government. At the same time, there are some initiatives taken by some social reformers and other people. So here we shall see what are the initiatives taken by the state, that is the government, and the others. So first we shall see the state initiatives. Now the most important initiative was the policy of reservation, which involved the setting aside of some places or seats for the members of the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes in different spheres of public life like jobs, politics, etc., education. So certain seats are reserved for the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes and the others. In addition to reservation, there have been a number of laws passed to end, prohibit and punish caste discrimination. Like the example, the Caste Disabilities Removal Act of 1850. Now this act allowed the entry of the Dalits to government schools. Likewise, students, there are other acts which were passed. Another important law was the Constitution Amendment Act of 2005, commonly known as the 93rd Amendment. Now, this amendment introduced reservations for the other backward classes, or commonly called as the OBCs. Then there was another act which was passed, that is the Prevention of Atrocities Act of 1989. Now, this act made legal provisions of punishing acts of violence and humiliation against Dalits and the Adivasis. Now, let us see the non-state initiatives. Now, Dalits, for example, have been increasingly active on the political, educational as well as the cultural fronts. Struggles and movements launched by different people, different reformers like Jyotiba Phule, Ambedkar and other organizations like the Bahujan Samaj Party in Uttar Pradesh and so many others. These have helped in stopping the caste and tribe discrimination. Dalits have also made significant contributions to literature. For example, Daya Pawar was a well-known Marathi poet who himself was a Dalit. Another topic, student, which is also very important, the other backward classes. I have already spoken about it in the previous topic. Other backward classes are commonly called as the OBCs. Now, these groups need not be based on caste alone. These are not based on caste alone. These are the classes generally identified as classes. They were described as socially and educationally backward classes, or popularly known as the OBCs. They are neither part of the forward caste at the top nor of the Dalits at the lower end. Means they are not neither the Brahmins on top nor the Dalits at the lower end. They are a mixture of people. There are also members of other religion, not only in Hinduism but also in other religion, even in Christianity, there are people belonging to the OBCs. Now, OBCs are a much diverse group than the Dalits or the Adivasis. So, the Dalits are one unique group, the Adivasis are a unique group, but here the OBCs are not a unique group. They are diverse. There are different type of people belonging to this category. So, students, to help this backward classes, the government had come up with the first backward classes commission, which was headed by Kaka Kalelkar in the year 1953. But however, nothing much was done with this commission. So, that is the reason why there was another commission that was started, that is the second backward classes commission headed by B.P. Mandal. However, it was only in the 1990s that the OBC issue became a major issue. After almost 46 years of independence, the OBC got recognition as a separate group of people for the purpose of 27% reservation in services in the Government of India undertakings as well as other public sector undertakings. Recent survey of 2004-2005 shows that the OBCs constitute of about 41% of the national population. Next topic, we have the Adivasi struggles. Now, like the scheduled caste, the scheduled tribes are also groups recognized by the Indian Constitution as specially marked by poverty, powerlessness and social stigma. The Janna or the tribes were believed to be people of the forest. The economic and social conditions are usually worse than the non-tribals. Now, during the colonial rule, students, the government reserved most forest tracts for their own use. With this policy, the Adivasis were denied of their livelihood. They could not enter the forest since they were reserved by the government. You know that the Adivasis are totally dependent on the forest for their livelihood. Now, since they were denied access to this forest, it also denied them of their livelihood. They were also denied access to forest and land for cultivation. Now, after independence, because of industrialization, the Adivasis were displaced without any compensation. Their lands were taken away for the construction of dams and hydroelectric power stations and so many other things. So they were displaced. Now their properties were taken away, students, without even giving them any compensation. They were just taken away from these people. Now in post-independence India, the most significant achievements of the Adivasi movements were the attainment of statehood for places like Jharkhand and Chhattisgarh. Now this was possible. They could fight for their statehood just because the Adivasis were a concentration. They were concentrated in particular places, not like the Dalits and the others. So only because of their concentration in particular areas, they were able to fight together to attain this statehood. Very important topic, students, struggles for women's equality and rights. Every year you get a question on this topic. Now, women issue arose in modern India as a part of the 19th century middle class social reform movements. Many of these reformers fought for women's rights, for equality for women. For example, Raja Ram Mohan Roy had led the campaign for anti-sati and widow remarriage. He started the Brahmo Samaj in the year 1828. His ideas represented a mixture of both Western rationality as well as Indian traditionality. Western rationality, reasoning, thinking, understanding, and he also kept the tradition, the Indian tradition intact. So he combined both in his ideas. Next we have Jyotiba Phule and others who fought against discrimination of women. He founded the Satya Shodhak Samaj. Satya Shodhak Samaj means what? Satya means the truth. So truth seeking, to search for or to seek for truth, which took up issues on women and untouchables. He also started the first school for women in Pune, where his wife was the headmistress. We learned this in chapter 3. Savitribai Phule, who was the headmistress of the school which was started by Jyotiba Phule. Then we have M.G. Ranade, who also took up problems of caste, widows. He used the writings of scholars such as Bishop Joseph. He also encouraged widow remarriage. Then we have Dayanand Saraswati and Sir Syed Ahmad Khan, who stood for women's education. Khan wanted girls to be educated, but within the curriculum that included instruction in religious principles, training in the art of housekeeping, etc. We have many women activists like Tarabai Shinde, Begum Rokhaya. Now Tarabai Shinde wrote the book Stri Purush Tulna, okay, in protest against the double standards of male-dominated society, about the patriarchy of the upper caste. Then Begum Rokhaya, who wrote Sultana's Dream. She was a Bengali, a Muslim woman who fought for women. In Goa also, students, we have many organizations. I would name two organizations. We have an organization by the name Bailanso Sad and Bailanso Ekot. Now these organizations, they try to help women in distress, women who are harassed by their in-laws or by their husbands because of dowry or so many other issues. So these organizations mostly help the women in Goa. Then the Karachi session, students, of the Indian National Congress issued a declaration on the fundamental rights of citizenship in India, whereby it committed itself to women's equality. We'll move on to our next topic, students. The differently abled are not disabled only because they are physically or mentally impaired, but also because the society is built in a manner that does not cater to their needs. When I say does not cater to their needs, I've put a picture in the background. There's a wheelchair and a staircase shown there in the picture. What does that signify? It tells us that a person who was using the wheelchair wanted to maybe climb the steps. is being helped by somebody to climb up the steps. He could not take the wheelchair up. So our society does not have infrastructures which will help these type of people. Our society is not built in a manner. It does not cater to these people's needs. That is why they are all the more handicapped. That is the reason why they are all the more stuck in that particular position in which they are. Now we use different labels, students, for these type of people like disability, handicapped, crippled, blind, deaf, and so many terms we use synonymously. We even use words like bechara, poor thing. When we see some blind person or a person who cannot walk properly, we say bechara, poor thing, when we have pity on these people. Now these differently abled are rendered disabled because they are not biologically disabled, but society renders them so. Our society, as I said in the beginning, is not catering to these people's needs. That is the reason why they are all the more disabled. Now there are some common features which are central to public perception of disability, how people perceive disability. Firstly, it is said that disability is understood as a biologically given. Then, disabled person is seen as a victim. We always consider these people as victims. Thirdly, disability is supposed to be linked to disabled individuals' self-perception. Next, we say the very idea of disability suggests that they are in need of help. That is why the moment we see a blind person trying to cross the road, we rush, we try to help that person because we feel that he or she is in need of some help. Now in India, labels such as disability, handicap, crippled, blind are used, as I already said before. Now the common perception views disability as retribution of the past karma, our past actions, our past deeds. We have done something wrong in the past. That is the reason why we are become like that, or that is the reason why that person is become like that, either deaf or dumb, whatever terms we use for these people. Now, in spite of all these difficulties, there are many people who challenge, many differently abled people who challenge themselves and they go ahead. I would like to show some pictures of people who have challenged this disability of theirs and have moved ahead. Yes, we have a picture here. All of you all know this is none other than Sudha Chandran, who lost her leg when she was a small child. That did not stop her. She did not stop at that stage, thinking because the leg is broken. She went on, she continued with her dancing, and today she has become a famous personality. I'm sure you all must be knowing this great personality. Yes, she is none other than Deepa Malik, the first Indian woman in Paralympics who won a medal. Not only that medal, students, she went on to get many more medals in shot put, in javelin throw, and so many. Her disability did not stop her. She continued. Yes, I don't know whether you know this great personality, somebody from our own state. She is none other than, students, Frederica Menezes from Panjim. You all have learnt about the poem written by her last year in the 11th standard, The Different Normals. So if you look at her, you will find that you will say how she can write this poem, and even in the poem she has said that, but she has crossed all the hurdles and have become a great writer, a great poet. So these are some of the people, students, who have overcome their disability and have excelled in life, have become famous in life. Now there is a small relationship between disability and poverty. This small topic is sometimes asked as a short answer of 2 marks or 3 marks. So the relationship between disability and poverty. Now as we see, there is a close relationship between disability and poverty. Now what is that? If you see malnutrition, mothers weakened by frequent childbirth, inadequate immunization programs, accident in overcrowded homes, All these have contributed to the incidence of disability among the poor people. Secondly, on the other hand now, disability has also created poverty by increasing isolation and economic strain, not just for the individual but for the entire family. When these people are disabled, they cannot work, they cannot earn any income, so they are sometimes a burden not only for themselves but even for the family. They cause an economic strain. So with the students, we come to the explanation part of this chapter. Now let us see some of the questions, likely questions from examination point of view. Now we have some objective types of questions. I'll go through them quickly. First we have patterns of unequal access to social resources are commonly called as social inequalities. Second, the system by which categories of people in a society are ranked in a hierarchy is termed as social stratification. Third, the preconceived opinions or attitudes held by members of one group towards another is called as prejudice. Prejudice literally means prejudgment. Fifth, the ways in which individuals may become cut off from full involvement in wider society is called as social exclusion. Then sixth, we have Mahatma Gandhi popularized the term Harijan, which literally means children of God. It can be asked either way. The term Dalit literally means downtrodden. Then the first backward classes commission was headed by Kaka Kalelkar in the year 1953. The second backward classes commission was headed by P. Mandal. Next we have Rajaram Mohan Roy started the Brahmo Samaj in the year 1828. It can be asked either ways. The chief architect of the Indian Constitution was Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. 12th, Dr. Ambedkar converted himself to Buddhism. These are some of the questions, short as well as long answers. What is social about social inequality and exclusion? Then we have write a note on prejudice. What are stereotypes? What is discrimination? Explain the features of social exclusion. Explain the key principles or features that help to explain social stratification. Write a note on untouchability, or it can also be asked as what are the dimensions of untouchability. Explain the government initiatives to stop caste and tribe discrimination, or it can be asked in another way. Explain the state and non-state initiatives addressing caste and tribe discrimination. Then we have write a note on the other backward classes. 10th question, explain the struggles for women's equality and rights. It can be also asked as what are the major issues taken up by women over its history, or examine the contribution made by the social reformers towards women's equality and rights. 11th question, explain the struggles of the differently abled, or state the features of the differently abled. Explain the declaration of the Karachi session. Analyze the Adivasi struggle for existence. Last we have, there's a close relationship between disability and poverty. Explain. With this, students, I come to the end of today's lecture. I hope all of you all have understood. Thank you so much. God bless you all. Stay home, stay safe.
Prudent Scholars, powered by Lupin Pharmaceuticals.
अब आपकी सुरक्षा आपके हाथों में। ल्यूपी सेफ हैंड सैनिटाइजर, आपका और चेन्नई सुपर किंग्स का फर्स्ट लाइन ऑफ डिफेंस। अब आपकी सुरक्षा आपके हाथों में। ल्यूपी सेफ हैंड सैनिटाइजर, आपका और चेन्नई सुपर किंग्स का फर्स्ट लाइन ऑफ डिफेंस। अब आपकी सुरक्षा आपके हाथों में। ल्यूपी सेफ हैंड सैनिटाइजर, आपका और चेन्नई सुपर किंग्स का फर्स्ट लाइन ऑफ डिफेंस।